Hello again and welcome back. In this second video, we're going to do a little bit more work on what we consider the trends, the tendencies in leadership over the last 20, 30 years. As we said at the beginning of this module, there are many, many theories of leadership and management which kind of come and go. They enter into the mainstream, and some of them last for 10 years, 20 years, and others kind of disappear. Some find their niche, like scientific management, leadership as control in maybe industry, and others just kind of come and go and disappear. There are leadership trends and fashions from topics like leadership by walking around, which is basically just walking around the factory or walking around the workplace in order to see and talk to people as they are doing things. These theories kind of move between more rational, the kind of more rational choice, cognitive ideas of how people make decisions and work, and then more kind of cultural and emotional ideas of how people work as well. We're going to have a look in this video at some of these, at transactional, transformational, pseudo-transformational, servant, ethical, and then finally I think the one which could be of most use to us in a research project, especially given the nature of the work, which is a project, which means it's something that will start, something that will end, and it produces something, so it's a project, and then we jump onto the next project. We're going to have a look also at servant ethical leadership as well, see how these can help us in team leadership. Now, way back in the 80s, 90s, leadership became a subject of best-selling books, the kind of books that people used to buy in airport bookshops, trying to improve themselves at work and be more successful. And then we got the idea of leadership as transformational leadership, from the ideas of Bennis, from the ideas of Burns. Talk about leadership as idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, and individualized consideration. These are people who focus on the individual, on creating stimulating and creative work for people to carry out, who motivate, who are a motivating role model as well. They are an idealized influence on the group. And if all this sounds a little bit charismatic, then it is really. At this stage of history, companies and organizations used to lock themselves in rooms and write mission statements and vision statements and talk about corporate values, and this kind of, all of these things are really part of this transformational leadership boom of the 80s and 1990s. It also distinguishes between what we call transactional leadership and non-leadership. Non-leadership, which is the extreme of non-leadership, is laissez-faire leadership, which is really not leading people at all. It can also be weak leadership and can lead to very impoverished working cultures and very low motivation levels among workers. In transactional leadership, we've got different levels of transactional leadership, from passive management by exception, in which I only correct people when there is a mistake. The rest of the time I leave them pretty much to do as they will. Or active management by exception, which can evolve into more negative leadership by micro managing what people do and how they do it. And then contingency reward management and leadership, where there is a result and I give a diploma, a badge, an employee of the month award, or money to the people who meet their objectives, who work in the way that I want them. transformational management leadership try to go beyond that and create a more resonant, more inspiring way of work. From the paradigms that we looked at last week, it's kind of closer really to the charismatic, messianic leadership for good and for bad. If you want to check out your own leadership style on those main ideas, do this, pause the video and do this short questionnaire to see how you are working and what style of leadership and management you are employing in your group or at home with your family or your cat or your dog or whatever you want to lead. Take this 5 seconds to do this short questionnaire. Pause the video, do the questionnaire, and see whether you are a laissez-faire manager or you are really transformational in your leadership style. Moving on to the negative, the downside of transformational leadership will be the pseudo transformational leader, and then anybody here can pretty much decide who they want to define as a pseudo transformational leader. Of course, the danger of these is very much in the eye of the beholder, whether you think Donald Trump was a transformational leader or a pseudo transformational leader. But pseudo transformational leaders lead people in a negative manner and towards negative, unethical goals. They are self-consumed, they exploit people, they are power-oriented, and their moral compass is often a little bit confused, which kind of leads us on towards other more positive communitarian styles of leadership, coming from the 1980s, 1970s, 1990s, and inspired in a short story by Hermann Hesse. Hermann Hesse is probably asking himself how on earth he has come to be a business management guru. But this is the idea that as leaders, we exist to serve the needs of our group. Thinking off the top of my head, there's a television program recently that I was watching which had a very clear example of servant leadership. What was it called? It's set in a hospital, New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam, which those of you who've got Netflix or HBO or one of these can check out, which had an introduction. The first scene of the first episode was a classic example of servant leadership, where the new leader, the new boss, walks into the hospital and asks people, how can I help you? How can I help you to do your work? Which is a much more powerful question if we are working in teams and if we're working in groups than we probably imagine. Leadership and management can often be an obstacle to work, as we're going to see in the second chapter and the second module of this course. Greenleaf, the theorist most associated with servant leadership, asks the question, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely to understand themselves? Now, of course, there are problems with these words. Freedom, as we're seeing at the moment, is a very loose concept. But our tasks here are listening, showing empathy, healing. My God, healing in the workplace. By this we mean kind of a social, emotional healing, helping people to feel well, persuading people, conceptualizing, having a clear vision, looking after people, and being committed to the community and the personal growth of those amongst us, which is a little bit similar to the movement of ethical leadership, which is based on respect for others, serving others, being just, manifesting honesty, building community. All of these are elements of what we call ethical leadership, and there have been debates on ethical leadership for centuries, really. although it's very difficult to find in the modern workplace. This is all very well, but you may say, well, it's not actually very practical for me in my day-to-day and in my research project. And for this reason, I'd like to end this video on looking at Hill's model of team leadership. Now, team leadership is something we're going to be looking at more closely perhaps in Module 3, but as learning is something which takes time, and very often we need to hear these concepts again and again and again before we really interiorize them or assimilate them into our workplace. We're going to have a look at the model now. Hill's model of team leadership says that the leadership has three main areas of work, really. There are the task, the relational, the relationship between ourselves and those in our group, and then our relationship also with the environment, with the context, with the world around our group of work. And we have internal leadership actions focused on the task, fixing clear goals, structuring our work for results, facilitating decisions, as we're going to see next week. A lot of our work is clearing the path, is making work possible, taking away the obstacles, taking away the barriers to work, training, making sure that people have the knowledge and the access to the knowledge that they need, maintaining and fixing standards. And then amongst the group, with the people in our group, our tasks are going to be much more coaching than command, more collaborative than autonomous, managing the conflict, building commitment, satisfying people's needs, and being a role model of the principles that we expect. Environmental aspects are networking around the group. Are we maintaining strong communication channels with other groups that we need, allies that we need for our work? Advocating means being the first sales person for our project and our work. Negotiating support from others, protecting, buffering the group from external negativities as well, assessing, sharing information. Now, all of these are the tasks and the activities of leadership in a team context. So when somebody asks us in an interview whether we are good team workers, this is what they are looking for. Now, in the next part of the course, we're going to look at also a little bit of followership and what makes good followers and what makes good team workers. Followership is something which has had quite a negative press over history, but it's actually really important. We're going to be looking at that in the second and third modules of this course. That's enough of the theory, I think, for today, and enough talk of leadership styles and measures. I leave you here with a questionnaire that you can carry out, maybe related to a leader that you know or you have enjoyed or suffered. Take a snapshot of this questionnaire. This is from Northhouse's classic book on leadership theory and practice, which is kind of the given textbook, if you like, for leadership. But this questionnaire could help you take a snapshot, pause the video and answer these questions related to somebody that you would know. And here is the final set of questions. There they go, again adapted from Leadership Quarterly by Craig and Gustafsson. Check out these videos, these questions, answer them, and you can grade them in the following way. Obviously, a high score is somebody that you maybe don't want to continue working with for very long. A low score means that you've got a very ethical leadership case. Okay, that's a little bit more on leadership. I've done these as videos. I'm going to upload a bibliography with links to further reading that you can do. And at some stage this week, I'll also post a short quiz related to leadership. Probably towards the end of the week, I will do a little bit of a leadership quiz that you can complete. Okay? Good luck with the change activity. Now, in the next video, you're going to have an activity that asks you to realize a change leadership process. Okay?